My name is DeAndrea Bolden, and you are tuned in to the Faith and Mental Health Podcast. As always, I have another amazing guest, people. Hold on to your seats and your wigs. So she's coming all the way from Jersey, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. So please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hello, everyone. Thank you first for having me. My name is Dr. Tiffany Jenkins. I am a therapist in private practice and leadership consultant in South Jersey, Camden County, New Jersey, about 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia. I'm a wife of 22 years. Had to think about that. I have two awesome sons, a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old who will be joining the United States Navy in a couple of weeks. I'm also a godmom to a very sweet and very feisty little 18-month-old named Xavier. That's me in a nutshell.
Wow. Okay. So now that our listeners are all buckled in and ready to go and they know a little glimmer of who you are, I want to talk more about what you do as far as working in the world of mental health. Let us know a little bit more about your academic background, your training, your specialties. One thing I try to let people know when it comes to mental health. Now, so for me, I had my CADC-DP for years in the state of Michigan. I do have my master's in counseling, but right now I'm preparing to go back to school. Ain't that crazy? Get my last backpack, get this last degree, right? So, so I'm not doing anything. Listen, I'm not doing it right now. But working in the field and working with different people, and I try to explain to people when it comes to mental health professionals, it's just like medical professionals. People have very specific training. They have expertise. They have qualifications in certain areas. I try to explain to people, listen, you're dealing with a lot of trauma. That person may not be a good fit. Okay, that's a licensed marriage and family therapist. That's fine, but you're hearing voices and seeing things. And so sometimes people think license just means going anywhere. And the sad part is we're living in a day where people aren't referring out the way they should.
Oh, yeah.
They're not handing people over the way. I have recently told people, I said, listen, therapy is not, we have glamorized it. I'm glad we're normalizing it, but now we're glamorizing it.
Ooh, and I explain to people,
therapy is not a box you check off. If you've been going a certain amount of time and you're not getting better, either you're not doing the work or you need to find someone else. And I told someone that based on what was going on with them. And they were like, I talked to my therapist. She said, basically, she kicked it in high gear because I tell people, listen, when people work for you, they need to work for you. And
yes.
So if, just because someone's a therapist doesn't mean they're a good fit for you. Therapists need to be honest and say, hey, you know what? This. I think this person would be a better fit for you, or you're dealing with compulsive hoarding. You probably need to go see this type of specialist. They're not. I'm not even trying to pull the blanket on people. I don't know why I went there, but I try to explain that to people so people can understand. Because the reason why I brung that up is because so many people are giving up on mental health professionals because they're going and they're not seeing any results, and sometimes it's because they're going to the wrong
place.
The person is not the right fit. The person doesn't have the right qualifications or skill set. They may have blind spots, and they're not assessing and looking for the right things. Like sometimes I remember, for instance, I won't say the person's name. There's a young lady I know. She's an adult. And she kept going to therapists, getting no results. And I was like, this just isn't making any sense. It's like, I can see all these issues dancing in front of me, literally. And all these therapists are saying everything's okay. I was like, no, this isn't making sense. Sent the person somewhere else. And on the first appointment, that person knocked I think this. You need to look into, and it was all right. It was all right. And that person lost years of their life and money going to therapists.
To the wrong place. Yeah.
To the wrong place. So I didn't even mean to get on my soapbox this time, but this obviously going to be a good one. So I'm going to jump in now.
No, this is something that I am also very passionate about. So I have been in the field for 25 years. When I started in the field, my initial draw to the field was addictions counseling. So I started as an addiction therapist. I started seeing that you could not just in New Jersey at the time, it was if you were substance abuse, you could only handle substance abuse. You couldn't talk
Right.
about the mental health stuff because that's not what they were there for. And it was kind of difficult when you're seeing people um, who are IV drug users with a significant history of like heroin addiction and all of this trauma wrapped up in it that they're
Yep.
trying to medicate and numb. And you're telling me I can't even have a conversation about their trauma because of the fact that they're coming in for substance abuse. Okay, fine. So I went back, and New Jersey being New Jersey, um, my bachelor's is in psychiatric rehabilitation with a focus human services with a focus in psychiatric rehabilitation. My first master's is in addiction science, and New Jersey said that's cool, but we're not giving you your licensed professional counselor degree. You can be a licensed chemical dependency
Yeah.
counselor, but we don't want you to be a licensed mental health counselor. You have to go back and get another master's degree. So I have a second master's degree that is in professional counseling.
Nice.
And then um, throughout that time, I realized that a lot of what was happening in clinical spaces was not it wasn't doing it for me. It wasn't doing it for me for so many reasons, right? Like
Yeah.
the main issue, so my bachelor's capstone was about the integration of faith and mental health, because
Nice.
I couldn't understand why you're telling me to bring my whole self, but if I bring up my faith, then all of a sudden my therapist is not allowed to have that conversation with me,
Yeah.
or don't even know how to have the conversation with me. Let's
Yeah.
just start there. But then if I go into houses of worship and I talk about these struggles, the answer is just kind of take your burdens to the Lord and leave them there. And that wasn't working either.
Oh, you get it. You
Um,
got it. Yeah. Yeah.
because like there's a process. Like if we look at scripture, everybody wasn't healed instantly. And one of my
Mm-mm.
favorite stories is the story of the 10 lepers. Jesus saw them. He told them, go show yourself to the priest. He didn't do anything to them. He sent them to go validate their recovery before they actually got it. And they were healed as they went, is what the scriptures tell us, right? So I'm like, there's got to be some kind of space in the church house for folks who are struggling with things. And then there's clinicians need to be better equipped in therapy spaces for this. So eventually I got tired of everybody. So I just started my own practice about
No.
6 years ago. Because I got tired of kind of like arguing with especially as I moved up in the ranks, and you start really getting a whiff of like the bureaucracy of community-based mental health
Yeah.
and fighting that fight. And so I just decided, okay, I'll take my ball and go home, basically. And so I created a therapy practice 6 years ago, where people could come and be their whole selves. If you are a believer and you need, biblical counsel to go along with, what we're talking about, this, CBT and all of that, DBT, does it
Yeah.
make sense to you? Okay, well, let's just talk about being transformed by the renewing of your mind. You can
Yeah.
understand that. Let's talk about that. Let's find your lane and your language, and let's talk about it. And so along the way, I picked up certifications for I kind of I think it's time to renew it. It might have lapsed already, but I take specialized training for trauma informed therapy. So I'm a certified
Oh, we want to
trauma
dive into
professional,
that. Okay.
but I don't do any specific modalities. I just have enough sense to know, like you said, okay, this is trauma and you need a trauma specialized person. I have enough knowledge to know that.
That's good.
I also work as a SAP. So for people who have a CDL, I do substance abuse evaluations to help them get their CDLs
That's
reinstated
good.
if they've had substance abuse. And I do the same thing for nuclear. We have a local nuclear plant that I'm also on site and do their substance abuse evaluations for. So
Wow.
I'm trained in that.
Love it.
I'm an approved clinical supervisor, so I do coach and train developing therapists and help
Mhm.
them get their stuff done. And I'm a certified employee assistance professional, so I can talk to the workplace dynamic as well. So
Wow. I mean,
that's
you
all of me.
listen, if anybody was every woman, it is all in you. My you everywhere. I'm
Oh, and
the
my
woman.
doctorate is in organizational leadership.
Nice.
I
No.
had enough of
Okay.
the clinical part. I felt like there needed to be some institutional change. So now I do a lot of work with leaders, helping them cultivate trauma informed
Nice.
workspaces and both secular and faith based spaces. So that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, so you just said a lot. So don't try to ain't no sense of cranking it down now. We cranking it up. And so thank you for talking about the Saints. Okay, so since you brung them into this
Yes,
conversation,
yes, we got to
they
talk about
have
the Saints.
tarred and feathered me for about 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I like I said, I have my CADC, I have my master's in counseling. I also have a master's in medical sciences, and then my bachelor's is in psychology and a minor in chemistry. So I did all that stuff. I worked in corporate about 17 years. But listen, the Saints was coming from but you would think I was the devil himself.
Listen,
They was fighting
I
me so hard. You would have thought that I was coming in there burning Bibles and flipping people. I'm just telling the people to go to therapy, and they wanted to strangle me.
Well, I had a
They
church
traumatized
mother,
me.
and I talked about this in my book as one of the reasons why it was so difficult for me to kind of like be out about this integration. I had a church mother who told me that, and I quote, that I just let the devil use me
Oh
because
no.
all they needed, because at the time my focus was very heavily on substance abuse. And I'm born and raised in Camden, New Jersey. If anybody knows anything about Camden, it was for a while was like listed as like
It
one of the
was in
most
the news.
dangerous
I remember stuff in the
cities.
news.
It's all hype, but yeah, it's a small city, very impoverished. All of industry has moved out and left a lot of people with not a lot of resources, and so
Yeah.
that's the end result, right? When you got a lot of people in a small space that are impoverished, they're gonna do what they need to do. And so my focus, my heart was drawn to folks who had substance use disorders. And this church mother told me all they needed to do was come down to the altar and repent and that everything would be okay. And my question was, this is where I really got in trouble.
Oh
I
no.
said, so what they supposed to do when they get up? And
Listen.
that was when they I was done. So thankfully, my I call him Obi-Wan. He's my children's godfather because we're Star Wars fans. Master Obi was there, and he's also he's got a doctorate in theology and all of the things. So he was able to slide in and kind of rescue the conversation. But I can tell you that the past 25 years, there's been a lot of that. It's only in the last probably vocally 2 or 3 years that I've seen a lot of pastors and ministers. I've had pastors come and pull me to the side and say, "Hey, I got somebody struggling with something. Could you tell me where I could send them?" But nobody would say it openly and publicly. Nobody was having,
Because it's
public
shame.
discussions.
It's
It's
seen as
shame, and
shameful.
it's
Yeah.
the shame starts in the pulpit. Because
Listen,
if you
I have
keep telling
had
me that I got a devil and 16 demons because I'm anxious,
oh
like
no.
that's not
I
gonna
wasn't
work
trying
for
to
me.
I wasn't see you, Dr. Jenkins, we wasn't
I'm
supposed to do
sorry.
this, but
Okay, my
listen.
bad. Okay,
So
let me sip my coffee. I'm gonna stop
no,
now.
no, no, no. Listen. So the some of the things I've run into is I've talked to pastors. So this is not secondary. I get a lot of people reaching out to me. I get single mothers reaching out to me, scared to get help because they're scared they're going to lose their children. And I'm like, if you don't get help, you probably
You
will lose
will.
your children.
Yep.
I have pet clergy that reach out to me and have told me I'm seeing voices and hearing things. I know I need help, but basically I'm not gonna go because I'm a leader in the church. I've had other people say they're too shameful and embarrassed that someone will see them going to therapy. I've had people say that what was it? I've had people reach out to me and well, they told me my pastor told me to throw my medication away. I said, well, listen, your pastor could be held liable if something goes left.
Absolutely.
And the person reached out to me, well, I flushed my medication down the toilet and I know something's wrong and I'm gonna have to go back to the psychiatric house. I've talked to pastors that told me and I walked them through what happened and they were like, how did you know? I said, well, how would I listen? you can't, some people, and I won't get into it, but there are certain, and mental health disorders that are treated with medication, that if the person stops taking, first of all, it's some order disorders that the people are known to not want to take their medication. They love how they
Yeah.
feel without it. I'm not going to get
Yes.
into all that.
Yes.
But and that's what that person had, and the pastor thought they were doing a good job. The person ended up hospitalized. It put a strain on their marriage. It was the biggest mess. And so I've gotten a lot of flack against that. I've had a lot of flack against a lot of the religious mindsets, but I am seeing progress in places where people
Mm-hmm.
are becoming more open.
Mm-hmm.
Where people are becoming more aware. I've had pastors reach out and say, listen, I think my member is dealing with some mental health issues. This person has done some absolutely off the wall things, and this isn't, the norm for any functioning adult.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean. But we
Mm-hmm.
know that normalcy doesn't have a definition, but you
Mm-hmm.
understand what I'm saying. But it just, just a lot of that, and trying to suss through a lot of these mindsets. And so faith and mental health, I get a lot. I don't counsel devils. I don't either. You counsel people that
People,
have
right.
issues, that have been traumatized, that are broken. Most people are more broken than they are bound. If we
Yes.
open our
Yes.
eyes and get better understanding and realize that people have a story, people have lost their voice, people have extreme childhood trauma, people have been abandoned, people have all type of issues. And when we realize that people are fighting their childhood more than the devil, they're
Yep.
fighting the voice of their mother more than the devil.
Mm-hmm.
They're fighting all type of things, that they've been through, their experiences. And so you're right. It's like, yes, I do believe in the power of prayer. I do believe in the power of God. I will never not believe in that. I'm gonna stand on
10
Bible and
toes down.
business until my last day.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to realize, what do we do with people after the altar? What happens after the altar? What is the follow-up? How do we recognize if someone
Yep.
needs a referral? How do we recognize when, these people are crying out on the altar, but you know what, you need a therapist? Because what a lot of, some pastors have the misconception that a therapist is out for your members. This therapist ain't got no church. They trying to get them
And let me let
healthy
me
enough
let
so
me
you can
say this.
disciple them.
Let me help you a little bit. If you let the folks go to therapy, it might make your pastoral duties a lot easier.
Yeah, that's what I just said. You can
Because a
disciple them
lot
better.
of what you think is people just being obstinate and being difficult and being
Yeah.
disobedient and not being subject to authority is really just a manifestation of all of those triggers that we just talked about.
Yep.
I and there's some
And
days I don't want your members experience because I'm trying to get burnt out. So I can't one of those members. I'm not trying to take them from you.
right.
I'm trying to help you. If we all do this work together, the
Yes.
proverb is many hands make light work, the African proverb.
Yeah.
Many hands, if you get in on this part and I get in on this part and their physician gets in on their part, do you understand how much healthier all of us will be?
Yeah.
Because we're not trying to do everybody else's job and stay in everybody else's lane. Like
Yeah.
it makes life so much easier. And it really but we have this example in scripture. We are part of a body. Every part of your body does not have the same function. So
Right.
why are you trying to do you the hand and you trying to be the foot and you the leg and you trying to be the nose? Like it doesn't work.
No.
And I think that what the reason why we're seeing more pastors be open to this is because pastors are experiencing burnout
Yes.
and breakdowns
Yep.
at much higher rates because they have been socialized to believe that they have to be all things to all people. No, baby,
Yeah.
that's God's job. You just supposed to move them in the direction they need to go. And I think now that pastors are feeling the pressure, now they're looking for resources and now they're starting to say, okay, wait a minute, maybe the way that we've looked at this has not been the healthiest, which I hate that it had to come this way
Yeah.
with us seeing so many pastors like have suicidal ideation, some of which
Yeah.
have even completed suicide, some
Yeah.
being caught up in like these horrible drug scandals and all of this. It's all a symptom of us trying to take on the job that the Holy Spirit was given to us to do. We ain't got to do everything. We ain't got to do everything. You
Amen.
stay in your lane, I'm gonna stay in mine, and we gonna come together and we all gonna live happily ever after.
I love it. I love it. What you said is the truth, especially when you're talking about having therapists at your disposal that are also believers, when they
Yes.
have a good understanding, they can their assignment will be more paracletic in nature to where they can walk alongside these
Yes.
people, make
Yes.
get them all ready so that you can disciple them and send them and prepare them for every good work that God has called them to. But they can't do that when they're broken. They can't do
Absolutely
that
not.
when they're chaotic and dysfunctional, and so like you said, we would be able to see healthier marriages and healthier parenting and just healthier believers and just people in general if we recognize people need help beyond what they're getting on a Sunday morning, getting them some stability in their life outside of the altar, stability in their life outside the
Yes.
four walls of the church. I don't really
Yes.
think I ask questions on social media a lot, and I sometimes they're rhetorical. I just want to see what people have to say. Like, I already
Uh-huh.
know the answer, but I like to see what people have to say. And I started asking questions, and people started reaching out to me. And the number of people that were never parented, never nurtured, never loved, never prepared for
Mhm.
adulthood, and then
Mhm.
we expect these people to come in the church and be these perfect patty little cookie cutter members, and these people's lives are just it's a mess. And
Or
so
worse yet,
we
we throw them into leadership because we see
oh
something in them,
no,
and
don't.
now you got broken people breaking other people, and then you wonder why the church is not growing.
Why did you do that? I
Oh,
want
I'm sorry.
get
I'm gonna
put
sip
your
my coffee.
coffee up. This is the second time I told you to play nice, but you're telling the truth. You're telling the truth. Hurt people hurt people. And when you put people and there may be a genuine call, there may
Absolutely.
genuinely be a God-given grace,
But
but
there's a
in that
process.
season, they're not ready. You're
Yes.
too broken. You're too
Mhm.
wounded. You're too traumatized. You're too bitter. You're too unforgiving. You're too triggered to handle people with care.
Yep.
And so that's why I want you to segue, and I want you to talk about how leaders can better recognize when their members need help. That's part one. Is a two-part question. The other part, I want you to talk about, I want to get a little bit more in that trauma informed, because we got to listen. It is 2025. Would y'all please stop? I don't want to touch my neighbor. I'm an introvert by nature. I want to sit at home and knit with my knitting machine and watch
Please.
YouTube and get the yarn all knotted up and try again and do
Please.
logic puzzles. Now I ain't got too many neighbors I can keep tapping, or just recognizing that some people like me, I can be socially awkward when I'm in a situation where I don't know anybody. I can panic. It's not an anxiety. It's like I don't know what to
I
say.
don't know you. I
I
don't
don't
know if
know
I'm
nobody
safe.
here. That I'm not a small talk person. I'm like, just jump right into the comment. You ain't got to come with a bunch of pleasantry. Just jump right in.
Mhm.
And so, recognizing there's different personality types, even in people that may not be so much, it may not be so much a person is mentally unhealthy, but recognize some people are more introverted. So
Mhm.
I'm more of a give me one or two people and let's have an intimate conversation versus 1,000 people. It will overwhelm me. I just can't do
Mhm.
it. And
Mhm.
that ain't no devil. That ain't I don't need deliverance. That's
At
just
all.
how I'm wired.
Yep.
And so even but so recognizing personality, but then also recognizing that some people are very, very traumatized, and hey, why you ain't praising God? Listen, it took every breath in their body to make it through the door.
Just to walk up.
Just
Yep.
love on them and be glad that they're there. Stop
Mhm.
harassing and badgering people, and be
Mhm.
glad they even have a mind and a will to want to come to the house of the Lord. I'm gonna let you
That
take
part.
over. Go ahead.
That part. That part. I
That's that two
think
part.
so. I think the problem is, and I'm gonna get in trouble, but it's okay.
Uh-oh.
I live in trouble. I think the problem is that we have been told for too long that unless we are, particularly in the Black church, unless we are extremely demonstrative, loud, running around, hugging your
Uh,
neighbor, just all of that, then you ain't grateful. You don't like, even if you listen to some praise and worship teams on Sunday morning, they are berating the people for praise. Like, it's like, hold up, because the Lord don't even do that. Like, why are you like bullying people into clapping their hands? What about the person whose worship is to sit and just think and just cry? The person who is an observer and who just feels the presence of God and just wants to bask in that presence because
Good.
everything else in their life is so chaotic and so crazy that when they come into the house of God, they just want a sense of peace. They just want
Yep.
to just to be. And I think part of the reason why we have such a problem with that is because most of the folks who are leading have never had permission, even though they feel that disconnect. They
Mm-hmm.
feel like this is your church face. If you come to church, you have to do this. You have to be this. The other part is most of the folks who were doing the traumatizing have never gotten their own healing. And
Mm-hmm.
you're traumatized. So you feel like, well, they beat me over the head. This is how I got it. So this is the way that you got. No, everything is not for everybody. Um, and then the other piece of that is we have some leaders who are so arrogant that they can't see past their own stuff. They can't see past what it is that they feel or this emotional experience that they're trying to create, because that's really what it boils down to. A lot of these folks who are turn to your neighbor and jump up 3 times and spin around and touch your toes and do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around, it's an emotional experience. It has very little to do with what I need to do to receive answers, to receive healing, to receive direction from God. Because if I have the Holy Spirit, which every believer has to have in order to be convicted of their sin, that same conviction is going to stir me when I need to do something or when I don't need to do something. I don't need you yelling at me for 30 minutes from the podium telling me that. But because we are so caught up in ourselves as a culture, we've lost sight of what God really requires of us. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of our places of worship have become trauma centers without any available staff. It's like walking into an emergency room that's full and there's no clinical staff there to help. You just got a bunch of hurt people. I got a gunshot wound, but I see that your leg is broken, so I'm trying to move over so you have space to put your leg up, but I'm bleeding out and you got into a car accident and can't move your neck, but you see me over here with my gunshot wound and you trying to help me put pressure on my wound. Where's the clinical staff? Where's the attention? Who's listening to what God is saying that he wants for his people? Bible says, above all else, I would that you prosper and be in health, and mental health
And
is
as your
health,
soul prosper.
even as your soul prospers. You can't have one without the other. We are meant to have both of those in concert. And it grieves me so bad to see folks who just want to see buildings filled. They want these emotional clips for their social media page. They want the flashing lights, which newsflash, for some folks with concussion history, those flashing lights that y'all like so much in church can actually trigger somebody to have an
For
epileptic
sensory
seizure.
sensory
That you got people who
sensitivity.
have sensory issues, that the
Yeah.
loud noises are not okay for them. Create spaces for people to be whoever they are. If you
Yeah.
are loud, my whole family is just, we just loud because it's a day that ends in Y. That's just who we are. My husband, on the other hand, when he first met our family, was like, "Are y'all arguing?" I was like, "No, that's the way we
Oh,
talk.
I'm done.
That's the way we talk." He was
That's just
like,
love. That's we love
uh,
each other.
like, and so I had to understand it's some family gatherings I just can't bring you to because your social
I
emotional battery
can't.
is going to be done.
I'm
Can't
done.
get mad because that's how you're wired. But with those same family members, if it's only a couple of us and we're going out to dinner, he's there like, nope, okay, yeah, where we going, what we doing? But a whole huge
It's too
mama
much.
them and the
Yeah.
cousin them he's not gonna do it. And so if we approached worship in that same way, think about how many more people, how much more effective our witness would be if we could see the person and meet them at the point of that need. There's
Yeah.
nowhere in scripture where Jesus met somebody and was like, I know this is what you need, but this is what I'm gonna give you. When he was with the fishermen, he talked about fish. When he
Yeah.
was with the farmers, he talked about harvesting. When he like everything was relevant to that person. Why did we lose that? How did we lose that in church? And I think that that's part of our struggle to get back to this trauma informed leadership is that we Jesus was the epitome of trauma informed leadership.
Right.
When he met the woman at the well, he didn't cuss her out and tell her how stank she was and all that other stuff. He was just like, yo, let me get something to drink right quick. And then go
Listen.
get your husband. I know
So,
you got 5 of them and the one you with ain't yours, but go ahead and go get them.
you know, I want to, yeah. I mean, we definitely, yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
I'm
But I
sorry.
want to
I
talk
don't want to.
about, I want to talk about a couple things I want to hear really fast is some of the signs of mental health issues and what should be the response of the church when there's a mental health crisis. I don't think people really know what to do, how to handle it, lot I yeah, let me just
So,
yeah, let me listen because I don't at least take the mental health crisis part out. Let me back that up. Let I'll save that for another time. But let's just start with people being able to recognize that someone has mental health issues. But this is the problem. And see, you're gonna get me in trouble again. Folks may have the same symptoms and they think, well, I'm okay. So okay, but go ahead. I'm done.
well, I'm gonna take the easy route. Okay. There is something called mental health first aid.
Yes.
I am a huge proponent. I'm actually about to do my train the trainer because I want to start offering the course because I think that that is the easiest point of entry
Let's
for
talk offline
anybody.
about that. Let's talk offline about that.
Okay, so mental health first aid, I think because of the way that it teaches you to just attend to any distress. It doesn't have to
Mhm.
rise to the point of mental illness, but
Right.
it is any I'm stressed out. I don't know what the financial situation is going to be in 6 months. I don't know what my job situation is about to look like. I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford groceries. That's stressful. And it's just a way of attending to that person. But you have to know what resources are available so that if they say something that sounds a little too off from where they normally are, you can say, have you ever thought about talking to somebody about that?
Mhm.
And you don't have to, it's just like medical first aid. Nobody is asking you to perform surgery, to do sutures, whatever.
Right.
You are just offering life saving support until you can transition that person into the proper
Good.
care.
I like that.
And I think at the very least, every church, I don't care if you got 500 or 5, every church needs to mandate that their leadership get certified in mental health first aid. That
That
is
is
the
really good.
least, that's the lowest barrier of entry.
That's
And
good.
then connect with your local therapist. Do some fact finding and some investigation. Go on there are a ton of different therapist directories and just start looking at folks and interviewing folks and inviting them to come and have coffee and just tell me about what you do. What kind of people do you work with? What do what are your biggest things that you see? So that you start gathering resources so that if the time comes when somebody needs those resources, you don't have to, well, let's just pray. No, we're going to pray. And here go the list of 3 people that you could probably go see next month, within the next month.
Mhm.
And I'm going to be checking in with you to make sure you followed up and show you that I care about you getting there. I think that's the lowest barrier of entry that we can do to make sure that our houses of worship are safe for everybody.
That's good. I really, really love that. I definitely want to talk offline about that, about the mental health first aid. And I like how she put that together because if you notice, if you listen to my question, I said give some signs of mental health issues. I didn't say mental health disorders because when
Yep.
we start talking about mental health disorders and psychopathology, then we got to pull out the DSM-5. I got to get my good reading glasses. Then we got to go through the criteria and look at what the diagnostic criteria is and all that, which is a whole nut. That's a podcast episode in itself. And I may
Right.
eventually do something like that. But I just wanted her to kind of put that out there because, like you said, hey, you rapidly lost a lot of weight. You rapidly gain weight. You look like you're not sleeping well. You're missing work all the time. Are you okay? You can't hold down a job. Things like that.
All the
Hey,
things.
your hygiene has declined. You're such a beautiful young lady, and I'm just noticing you're not taking care of yourself like you used to. Like
Yes.
noticing things, being more aware, being more conscious. You seem real jittery, that
Mhm.
type of thing. So we have to, recognize when things are going on. But I like how you said, listen, I'm just doing I'm giving you the support you need so I can hand you over to the people that
Yep.
can take better care of you. So listen, we went over our time and I try to never go over, but this conversation was too
My
good.
bad.
Listen, I know I'm gonna get in trouble for this one, but it was okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Jenkins. But I want you to take the time to close us out. Please let people know where to find you, how they can connect with. We didn't even get to the. Okay, I'm gonna have to add a couple more minutes. We gotta talk about the book. Sorry, guys, give me like 2, 3 more minutes. Talk about the book. We got so listen. We went the rabbit hole got us today. It
It got
did.
deep. It
It
got deep.
did. It
It
did.
got deep.
So I want to talk about your book, Between the Cross and the Couch. If you can just
Mm-hmm.
let us know a little bit about that, I'll add a little something and then we'll go ahead and close out. So y'all
Okay.
hold on. We got to finish. We got to get to this book.
So yeah, so a couple years ago, I think it was about a year and a half ago now, I wrote a book, Between the Couch and the Cross. Will You Be Made Whole? It is literally my story about integrating my mental health challenges and struggles as someone diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and my faith-based background together, to help me find healing and wholeness in, as I walk through my own abandonment issues from my childhood with the issues that I had with my father. It is pretty much just my story, of trying to navigate this space of being a therapist, knowing what I know about mental health and the neurobiology of our emotions, and
Yeah.
then my faith and how to integrate the two at a time when, like I said earlier, people were telling me that I was letting the devil use me because I thought therapy was a great space to really process what was going on
Yeah.
with me and for me. And so yeah, that's the book in the nutshell. It's not a really long read. I tried to keep it very short and very to the point. There's a lot of scripture references in there, but there's also a lot of truth, because it's like I said, it's my story. I didn't want it to be too cerebral where it was like, oh, so this is the diagnosis for this and this is what. No, like this is a real person who is a therapist. And that's the other thing. Therapists are human first. And
Yeah.
so therapists have their own stuff that they have to navigate, the challenges that they have to navigate. And how did I bring that and my faith together in a place where I can be my most authentic self?
I love it.
Um and yeah, so that book and my other book is Reclaiming My Time, A Black Woman's Guide to Self-Care. That was an earlier
Nice.
book. That was just a work. Now that one's a workbook for
Okay.
primarily for Black women, helping them to cultivate a self-care practice that is holistic, not just manis and petties. That's your hygiene. I
Ah,
want you to do that,
yes.
please and thank you.
Yeah.
This is
Self-care, and doing that. That's
holistic,
cool. Yeah.
right? Self-care. All of those books, the information about how to contact me, all of that is at my website, drtiffanyjenkins.com. Um, and all of there's a mailing list there that if folks want to connect with me, and find out just about different projects that I have going on, I usually send out a newsletter regularly just to let folks know what's going on, what's coming up. And then on LinkedIn, Dr. Tiffany Jenkins, as well as our therapy website is awakeningchange.org. And that's all. That's where you find me.
Love it. Listen, I'm gonna have to listen. I'm gonna have to bring you back on because we're gonna have to talk about when the therapist needs more help than the patients. I
Listen,
can't get you back.
there's no way that gets done in 30 minutes. I'm sorry. There's no way. I am a clinical supervisor and I cannot tell you how many times I've had to have that conversation. Baby, hold on. Put your caseload on hold. Go back and do your own therapy work first. Then let's come back and pick this up. It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
The counter transference, the projection, it's a lot. I don't listen. We gonna talk offline. This has been amazing. For those that are tuning in, I'm talking live with Dr. Tiffany Jenkins out of New Jersey. She's a therapist, she's an author, she's a speaker, and we had a great time today. So I hope you guys really,
A
really
time was
enjoyed this.
had.
Listen, I'm gonna have to bring her back. This is she got me excited, so I'm gonna have to bring her back. But thank you again for being my guest, Dr. Jenkins, and thank you so much to everybody that tuned in. Until next time.
Bye bye.